Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we are back. We got to talk. So, looks like Jimmy Kimmel actually won. He's coming back, gonna be back on air. Kind of showed us that, man, if you stand up to this orange man, you have an opportunity to win. So many folks, the first thing they do is fold when pressure gets a little bit tight. Jimmy Kimmel was told to apologize to Charlie Kirk's family. He was told to give a donation, supposedly, reportedly. And what's reported, he was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And now Disney comes out and they make a statement, and this is the report based on that.
Breaking news one more time. Disney has just announced that Jimmy Kimmel will return to television tomorrow, saying in a statement last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country. It is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive. We have spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy. And after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday. Joining us now, Puck senior correspondent Dylan Byers. Is this a surprise, Dylan?
It's not a surprise that he was going to come back. I think that was what Disney had been telegraphing from the beginning. I mean, in many ways, the only person who might have called an end to that, I think, was Jimmy Kimmel himself, if he recognized an opportunity here to walk. Look, there's a lot to unpack here. On the one hand, Disney is still caught, I think, between a rock and a hard place when it comes to, their intention to sort of do the right thing here, frankly, and also satisfy the creative community, satisfy Hollywood. But I don't necessarily foresee pressure from the Trump administration or the FCC going away. So how they navigate that, and I think it's going to be really interesting to watch what sort of agreement they came to with Kimmel in terms of what he's going to say on air when he comes back on the show tomorrow night. Because
that is actually what I'm super interested in is like, what is his Trump rhetoric going to look like going forward? Is he going to be able to say negative things about Trump like he's been saying for the last few years? Is he going to be able to tease Trump like he has over the last few years? Or has ABC, Disney told him the Trump stuff off the table? Can't do it. No more of that. That's what I'm really interested in seeing. Like, what does that future look like now that he's able to come back on TV? What type of rules and marching orders is he going to have to obey? That's what I'm wondering.
of course, sort of the original catalyst here for Disney suspending his show, at least in their words, is that they sort of wanted to ratchet down, that, take down the temperature, cool things off, because as they say in that statement, it was a very emotionally sensitive moment in the country. Now,
I want to talk about that statement. So I'm not a big fan of telling people what they should be outraged about. I'm not a big fan of telling people what they should and should not be upset about. I'll give you an example. So the Washington Commanders are an NFL football team. They used to be called the Washington Redskins. And so many folks are saying they should be able to be called the Redskins. It's not that big a deal. Call them the Redskins. Switch their name back to the Redskins. I like that name. But my thought is, if the American Indians, if Native Americans are telling you that that name is offensive to them, then we should not use that name. We should not be looking at these Native Americans and saying, it's not that big a deal. Y'all whining about this stuff. It's not that big a deal. We're going to call you the Redskins anyway. Get over it. It's not up to us to do that. It's our responsibility to hear out people, excuse me, and when they tell us that something offends them, it's our job to say, okay, cool, you got it, my bad, and do something different. That's my mentality on this whole thing. Okay.
Jimmy had some things that he wanted to say. Disney clearly had some things they did not want him to say. Where did they net out here? And what is he going to say in that opening monologue that is going to simultaneously, I think, appease Disney while also making the sort of statement that a guy like Jimmy Kimmel wants to make about this issue?
Yeah. I heard the whole opening monologue that he gave, the whole thing. And this was like after the suspension news dropped. So I was like, I wonder what he said. So I went back and I listened to the whole thing. And I had to go back and listen to it again because I was like, maybe I missed something. Maybe there was like a inside joke that I wasn't aware of or something like that. So I listened to this whole thing twice and I was like, I don't even know what everybody's upset about. I couldn't even point out the reason why they were upset. So I had to do some Googles and find out like which part of the Jimmy Kimmel conversation has people going crazy. And apparently it was just the fact that he said he was talking about um, the supposed killer of Charlie Kirk. And that is what set folks off. Again, I don't like telling people what they should be outraged about. But me personally, I just thought that was an overstep for Trump's administration. And what I really believed happened was, because I don't think it really offended too many folks. I think it was just Trump's excuse to finally do something about a guy that he did not like. He doesn't like Jimmy Kimmel because Jimmy Kimmel always makes fun of him. Now he's got this Charlie Kirk thing that's growing like crazy. He was like, okay, here's our angle to finally get this fool out of here. Here's our angle to finally get Jimmy Kimmel because he said something about Charlie Kirk and the whole world is ready to burn down over Charlie Kirk. So let's jump out there and say, you can't say this about our friend. Let's go ahead and get him off the air based on that. That's what I really think happened here. I don't think really Trump had any kind of, I don't think he took any offense to what was really
So
said.
Brendan Carr, by the way, was at a forum earlier today in New York City. He defended the Jimmy Kimmel comments. He said Jimmy is in the situation that he's in because of his ratings, not because of anything that's happened at the federal government level. Obviously, that doesn't line up with the sequence of events. The New York Times did a great timeline on how this whole thing unfolded. Jimmy Kimmel made the statements on Monday night. Not much of a reaction to them. Neither was there much of a reaction Tuesday morning. It wasn't until a few accounts that, have the job of clipping late night shows, looking for what they see as liberal bias, clipping them, and then that stuff being amplified by a certain set of highly followed people like Elon Musk. That's when a car got involved, and that's when Sinclair made their decision. And after that is when ABC made its decision. So obviously the pressure is clear on the one side for Bob Iger from the government. What about the pressure on the other side? Who was he hearing from? How loud was it? How big was the demand for him to resolve the Kimmel issue with Kimmel coming back on air?
Well, look, obviously the blowback was intense. And I think if the intention was to dial down the energy, I think anyone who's lived in this country for the last few days know that that really didn't happen. And there was, a sort of statement signed on by many of the biggest stars in Hollywood. That statement, frankly, was sort of weak. They didn't necessarily threaten any action or said they were going to stop working with Disney. But look, if you're Bob Iger and if you're Disney, you pride yourself on the integrity of your company and on your relationship with that creative community. And I think the blowback was only going to snowball from there, right? And do you see, potentially canceled Disney Plus subscriptions in a material way? Do you see big creators not actually deciding or making a statement that they are not going to work with Disney? I mean, potentially. Back to your point about late night, though, Katie, like all things.
I did see quite a bit of information online. I saw quite a few accounts, quite a few YouTube folks saying that they were going to end their subscription with Hulu and Disney and all that. I saw that. Disney's stock supposedly failed. This looked almost like the opposite of what we saw from the Cracker Barrel logo change, where people in the community are telling these businesses, we don't approve of this, and we're going to show you that we don't approve of this by doing X. And it works. If you hit people where the money, where they pocket, like if you hit them in the pocket, like they're going to change. So Disney will come out and they'll put a spin on this. And I do love Disney. I've been a huge fan of Disney. I've taken my kids to Disney World many times for their birthdays and all that. I love Disney. I do think this was a misstep, putting Jimmy Kimmel on the sideline. I don't believe that it was in there. Like this guy says that they always planned on bringing him back. I honestly don't necessarily believe that. I think that the blowback was so extreme and they saw their subscriptions drop, and they saw people online saying you should cancel your subscription, that scared them so much that they made this decision quickly and just was like, oh yeah, we always plan on bringing them back. That's what I really believe what happened here.
Things can be true here. It's definitely true that late night television is not a great business. You're not going to book any media executive on your show who's going to come forward and say, "Oh no, there's a bright future for late night." I mean, we are looking at in Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, and Stephen Colbert, whose show, of course, is also not coming back. We're looking at sort of the last generation of marquee late night hosts who are sort of household names in this country, or at least in parts of this country. That business is going away. But none of that negates the timeline that you brought up, which is that this happened because of FCC pressure, because of pressure from Nexstar and Sinclair, which clearly got the message about what Brendan Carr was saying and what it was that he wanted. And then because Disney, which is really stuck in this hard place, a lot of business leaders are trying to figure out how to navigate an administration that is brazenly transactional. Disney made the choice that it did. Now, can this become water under the bridge, right? Can you bring back Jimmy Kimmel and can you patch everything up? Maybe you're still going to have that pressure from the Trump administration, and we're going to see what he says on Tuesday night.
Well, so I'm interested in that.
So that's the majority of the part that I wanted to show y'all. We live in some crazy times, man, where private businesses, companies that are publicly owned, all this stuff, they are having to make decisions based on what the president is thinking. And then they make those decisions, and then they got to wait to see what the public is how the public will respond to it. And if the public starts to hurt their pocket, then they got to switch. Like, it's crazy, man. We live in a crazy world right now. So let me know y'all's thoughts on this whole situation. I am glad that Jimmy Kimmel's coming back on air. I will tell you, like this guy is saying, the late night talk stuff, it seems like it is dying. I can't tell you the last time I've watched a late night talk host. It's not my kind of thing. I don't know anybody in my family, my friends. I don't know if anybody who's actually talked about watching this stuff consistently. So that whole business model seems to be going away. But even still, to cancel the guy based on something that he said about Charlie Kirk is crazy work to me. So let me know y'all's thoughts on it. Please do like the video. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to continue building this thing one like and one subscription at a time. Thank you. Take care. God bless. Peace.